Ta-da! And we're live. So, good morning, good day, or good evening, wherever you are. I finally remembered my password. The reason I'm doing this live stream is, I wanted to get into live streaming anyways in 2026. I used to do a few, but that was before I did magic content. And really, this is also to help me finish the next mainline video. My most interesting Commander series has been on pause for a while. That is partly because, editing is not the most fun, especially if it's repetitive, like, for this video type. And also just, you're not always super into Magic, but with the recent arrival of Lorwyn spoilers and Lorwyn as a whole, I think reinvigorated my love for Magic. So I'm back and I want to work on the new mainline video. And since I wanted to get into streaming anyways, and since I find it very helpful to have a time and a place to do stuff, I figured, why not combine the two? So we are going to talk about some Magic cards. I'm going to zoom in a little. I think that makes following along a bit easier. Probably. I already got started a little. That was yesterday. On the first two we're gonna talk about. To explain the procedure. Down here in the sideboard, oops, that's a little too far. I already have a pre-selection of 35 commanders. I already know I'm gonna add one more that I recently rediscovered and had an epiphany for, so to speak, thanks to the one and only Reduke in a Wizard's video. But in general, we are going to pull up the sideboard commander into here and then try and find ways to build around that commander. So you can already see that for Amzu, I gave her the Amzu tag, AMZ, and then there's 13 cards in that tag. So let's say Amzu cares about cards leaving your graveyard. We have different ways of cards leaving your graveyard, like exile-based, delve, reanimate, just an oversold cemetery, returning that card. And then we have payoffs for big creatures, since it cares about mana value, like Return of the Wild Speaker. And of course, well, the big mana cost creatures, like Draco, for example. This is typically the way I go about things. Second example, Babali Saga Night Witch, 3 mana 3/3, tap to sacrifice up to 3 permanents. And if 3 or more card types were among the sacrificed permanents, each opponent loses 3 life, and you gain 3 life and draw 3 cards. So what I did is, first of all, I thought, well, okay, so you're sacrificing things, and you care about different card types. What else cares about different card types? Lurgoyfs. Okay, so I added a bunch of Lurgoyf cards. Next thought was, this is not, like, Lurgoyfs plus this is not enough to make a deck. What else is there? Well, there's Delirium. Thankfully, we already have an entire mechanic built around different card types in your graveyard, which is, like, perfect for Babali Saga. So I added a bunch of Delirium cards. And then I was like, how do we solve the permanent type clause on Babali Saga? I did a bit of research and I found stuff like Ashaya Soul of the Wild. I mean, what do you mean found? It's a super popular card, but I realized that adding just an extra tag, right, the land tag, to all of your creatures makes this a whole lot easier. If you then also have a Mycosynth Lattice, well, suddenly every creature you have is a creature land artifact. And just sacrificing one creature will fulfill Babali Saga's clause. I also found in my research Hammer of Perforos. This is, of course, not a card that you can play with with your Babali Saga, because it's red, commander restrictions, right? But it is a very interesting item or card. I've been playing too much Bazaar. Because it creates a colorless creature, enchantment, artifact token. So this token alone would be enough to fulfill Babali Saga's clause. I mean, again, you can't play it, but when there's a card like Babali Saga, for sure there's another card. I didn't do a deep dive, but maybe something else cares about creature types. Card types on cards. And this is the way I kind of go through things. Oh yeah, here, for example, also food artifacts. So Yigra, Eater of All, also adds an artifact tag to all of your creatures. Yes. So this is the way I am doing things for the most part. Let me set up my OBS a bit better if I can. I'm not sure I can. Well, this will have to do. Yes. So the first two I already added. Let's go to Belby Corrupted Observer as our first live brainstorming session. The way I do it is like I add one more. Now we have two. I move up one to the main deck. Just one. So, Belby's Corrupted Observer. 2-mana 2/2 zombie elf at the beginning of each player's post-combat main phase. That player adds colorless for each of your opponents who lost life this turn. So, first thing I notice is, well, it adds a bunch of colorless mana. So, like we're talking Eldrazi, it cares about players losing life. So we're thinking 1-drops that cause everyone to lose a life. And there's a slight asynchronicity because you have 3 opponents that you want to lose life. Your other opponents only care about 2 opponents. I mean, they can make themselves lose life if they have a way to, but they only have 2 people they can attack. So they can only get 4 mana if they don't hurt themselves. This is stuff that, like, that's the stuff I notice. Let's give her a tag. Give her the bell tag. Although I already know that the next creature is also a BLE, so we'll need to improvise. But this is Belby Corrupted Observer. First thing I would be looking for is, this is a 2-drop. We want to build our curve. So what I'm looking for is a creature, a 1-drop, and then each lose life. All right. So Cauldron Familia does not work. Deathrite Shaman, definitely interesting. It might not be good on curve, but it's a good card in general. Yeah, I don't think you play this on 1 to get the biggest benefit, but it's a good card in general. But what we are looking for is more like, yes, exactly. Mardu Shadow Spear, and I know there's like a Night Market Lookout here, and Okiba Reckoner Raid, also very good. By the way, just so you know, on my second screen, I also have the same like deck list open because I don't like going back to where I can read what the commander actually does. Yeah, post-combat main phase. So you could play this main phase too. It's not the worst. It might not end up in my video as an example. Yeah, I was thinking Pulse Tracker, who doesn't control an elf. Like, that's usually the case. Stuff like this. All right? Ah, yeah. Classic. I actually played a bit of Standard around that time. Excuse me. So, we have the enablers for our commander. Right? Let's give it all the bell tag. Oh, can I not do that? Add less tag, Bell. There's a shortcut to add less tag. Wait, is this not sorted by type and tag? It is. Usually I can just drag and drop. Would be nicer. This is already a sideboard. But I can't. Well, it's going to be a bit of manual labor then. That is a-okay. Bell. And then usually, like, in my videos, I'll only show 2 or 3 of these because, I mean, it's a bit redundant. And I don't want to build decks for people. I just want to give them an idea of how a deck could look. Now, Belby, in my opinion, is pretty straightforward. There's not that much to her. In general, I try to spend between at least 15 minutes. Like, if a commander is not interesting and I don't have anything to say about him, then, well, I just don't even consider them for my video. Something like this is very on the nose when it comes to what it wants to do. You just add a bunch of mana, and like, what do? You either cast most likely artifact spells or Eldrazi. So the next step is we have all of these enablers that make our opponents lose life. So let's find the payoffs. The way I would do this is, I guess let's first start with Eldrazi, because they are the most powerful, like, creatures that are most certainly good payoffs for this. The way I think about it is you play your commander on 2, and then in your post-combat main phase, 3 of your opponents have lost life if you had the ideal start of a 1-drop that pings everyone for 1. So I will go about this way. We want an Eldrazi creature type, mana value 5 or greater, because in your post-combat main phase, you can add 6 mana. And then let's just get some examples. Again, I don't want to build the entire deck. I just want to give an impression of what your deck building process could look like, but I still want the viewer of my video to be able to have some freedom of creativity. Sometimes I like to showcase new card. I don't actually know what this does. When this creature leaves the battlefield, draw a card. Okay, so this is not like hyper aggressive, but I'm still gonna put it in the list because yeah, it's a new card. People might not know it. Then colored mana is excluded because you only get colorless mana. And the most powerful thing, again, we can do is drop a 6-drop on turn 2. 1-drop, turn 1, commander turn 2, post-combat main phase, we gain 6 colorless mana. So example, when you cast search for a 7 or greater, reveal it. I mean, I think this is kind of perfect. It forces your opponents in commander to have a removal spell. Otherwise, you will be able to cast the creature you're searching for. This might take one of the spots I'm going to showcase in the video, and we might not showcase the new card. And then, like, usually what I like to provide is a very, like, famous card. So people immediately have, like, an anchor point. Ah, okay, this is the deck where you cast Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger. That's a card, right? Yeah. Decimator might be interesting because it has this overrun effect, and you're playing 1-drops that are here to enable your commander. So I might give it a mention. Desolated Twin. Yeah, now I'm kind of looking for just an Eldrazi that has some pull factor, some recognition. Kind of only looking for Kozilek or Ulamog. Yeah, draw 4 cards. Let's just take Kozilek. This also brings up a point that I will most likely mention in the video. Like, unfortunately, these payoffs are all super expensive. But everybody's always free to proxy. That's my opinion. Like, I don't want to shy away from expensive cards because I know a lot of people are super proxy friendly. So I want to give them an idea at least. Some people also are just willing to pay the price. And maybe we can also talk about an alternative and think about artifacts. Um, so I've already been talking about 10 minutes for this command. I don't want to spend too much more because, as you can see on the right side, I here have a list of all the commanders I want to go through. And I already make comments on the cards and like the way I want to talk about them, which order. That way it's easier when I'm recording the video later to, yeah, like figure out what my thinking, my thought process was when I made the list. And you see I have, here it's 35 commanders. Well, if I spend half an hour on one commander, then this is 1 hour, and this is 1 hour, and this is 1 hour, and it gets out of hand super quickly. That's why these videos, like, they actually do take a while. The editing itself is not super intense. It's quite boring, which also drags out the process for me personally. But really, the research is what takes a while. So I don't have a striking idea when it comes to artifacts. So sometimes what I will do, but this is like, I mean, I do it as research. Some people might think that's like super boring. But I treat this in a realistic way. I don't want to be like meta defining, showing new research techniques or anything. Like realistically, people are gonna look at at EDHREC. I too use EDHREC. I try to use it a bit later in the process. But like other people are gonna do it. I like to showcase this to get new ideas. Like this is, in my opinion, the perfect way to use EDHREC is to get new ideas. So I would probably look at utility artifacts in this case. And I mean, of course, realize that I should have been thinking of Proliferaxia. This is always the big artifact we're talking about when it comes to cheating out artifacts, reanimating artifacts. I think Chimil, the Inner Sun, is very nice to mention because it has that 6 generic cost. So in an ideal world, you drop a 1-drop. We're talking you drop a Night Market Lookout. On turn 2, you will always be able to cast Belby, Corrupted Observer. You've attacked with your 1-drop. Everybody of your opponents lost a life. That means you gain 6 generic. And then you could be dropping a Chimil, the Inner Sun on turn 2, and very nicely, it triggers at the beginning of your end step. So your turn 2 is dropping your commander, dropping a 6-drop artifact, and then discovering 5. Of course, discovering 5, maybe in a Belby deck, not that powerful because you're running a lot of 1-drop enablers, and then more expensive stuff. But honestly, like, it's free value, your spells won't be able to be countered. This is exactly the kind of artifact that I would be looking for if I were to build a Belby deck. Which I'm not, because, like, personally, I haven't found proxies that, like, I found satisfying, so I don't proxy. And yeah, like, you can see the price tags of these cards are very expensive. It's the type of strategy, when it comes to cheating out big stuff, unfortunately, the big stuff is always going to be expensive because Magic players love big stuff. Immortal Sun, $10. Maybe there's a way to build a Belby deck that involves less expensive cards. Everybody's always welcome to chime in and give suggestions. But yeah, in my video, I'm probably going to talk about like Chimil, Immortal Sun, because those are perfect, and Eldrazi's. So let's add how do you write that? Immortal Sun? Yes, exactly. Perfect. And that's probably the 15 minutes I would spend on Belby. Again, 15 minutes per commander is already a long time because that means 4 commanders is an hour. And then I'm talking about almost 40 commanders, so that's 10 hours of research. Realistically, though, on some commanders, I will spend way more time. And on some commanders, I just kick them because I put them in the list. And then I realized that I don't actually have anything interesting to say about it. So yeah, sometimes I end up kicking commanders from the list. This list especially was prepared, I believe, 3 months ago when I first started working on this video. Then I lost a bit of motivation, and now I'm back. Beledros with a bloom. Of course, I really like Strixhaven, which I think this is originally from. It's a 7 mana 4/4 flying elder dragon. At the beginning of each upkeep, you create a 1/1 black and green pest creature token. Pests gain you a life when they die. And the big haymaker, you get to pay 10 life, untap all lands you control, but you only get to do this once each turn. To me, this screams combo. It creates a lot of go wide tokens. But when I think, when I see an effect like this, obviously what you want to do is just do this multiple times per turn, or at least per turn cycle. The way you do this more than once per turn is, I don't know, like sacrificing it, reanimating it. This does not have a tap clause, so you don't even need to give Beledros haste to repeatedly do this. So the way I think about this is 7 mana, gain infinite mana. The first restriction I would mention in my video is it untaps all your lands you control. That means even though this is a green commander, I would definitely stay away from any creature-based ramp. So let's first add it to the main deck so we can work on it. Move one to the main deck. And well, now we have the stupid name doubling. So let's say give it the Bella tag as Beledros. And let's add like the classics. Everybody likes to get super creative. With their deck building, but like the basics are always the same. Like 3 visits will always be kind of the best thing you can do on 2 mana and green for a lot of these decks. Let's add them to the Beledros. And I also like to change the artwork already because later I'll export them for my video. And I always choose one that I like vibe with. Let's just do the Baldur's Gate one. Just not the Doctor Who one. Okay, so we're doing 2 mana ramp because we're green. We're creating a lot of pest tokens that die. What we might want is good sacrifice outlets. Why do we want good sacrifice outlets? Well, in a pinch, we can gain life because we have a lot of creatures. And also, well, we might want to sacrifice Beledros and reanimate it. What are the best sacrifice outlets? Well, I would say if we also have small creatures, the best sacrifice outlet is one of the altars. We have so many altars. So let's look for sacrifice. And then in quotation marks, the 2 dots that... Okay, that is too many. And then let's do name altar. Because there's a few altars that you could play. Altar of Dementia, in case you want to mill. This might be strategy based. So let's say you're using all of this mana to also reanimate other creatures because you're playing reanimate also to reanimate Beledros. Well, then Altar of Dementia might be your card. Let's add it for now. I might not end up talking about it, but yeah, Ashnod's Altar was of course the thing I was thinking about. Just in general, a super powerful card. We have a bunch of small insect tokens. Let's make use of them to, yeah, maybe sacrifice Beledros, sacrifice the token it created, the tokens, it will be multiple, and then return Beledros to the battlefield from the command zone with the mana we just added. Maybe we find one more good example. Might not be an altar. The top of my head, I can think of other good sacrifice outlets. There's a Priest of the Forgotten Gods. Let's add it. Of the Forgotten Gods. Whoops. Priest of the... Huh. Okay, maybe it's called differently. It's a 2-mana creature that sacrifices 2 creatures to, I believe, drain everyone for 1. Everybody discards a card and everybody gains 2 life. It's not necessary for the video, but it would be interesting. Let's give this the tag, Belladros. We can cycle back to this later. So we have lots of lands because we play stuff like 3 Visits and Nature's Law. We have sacrifice outlets to A, sacrifice our commander, or B, sacrifice the small black and green pest creature tokens to gain a bunch of mana. What else can we do with this? We're playing a bunch of instants. That is for sure, because if we can't do this multiple times in our turn, let's at least do it multiple times during the turn cycle. So what I'm thinking is, let's look for return creature graveyard battlefield, right, to hit reanimate spells. And then let's look for instants. Oh, just the worst treatment. I always think, damn, Prosperity? What does Prosperity do? And then I realize, the card is not called Prosperity at all. Return target creature card from graveyard to the battlefield. It fights. Not the best example because it's not iconic. Usually I want to go for cards that stand for a type of effect, and like nobody has ever heard for back for more. Black Sun's Twilight sounds pretty good, like in practice. You can pair up removal with reanimate, and if that's not good, then I don't know. Yeah, stuff like Corpse Dance. Pretty iconic. So yeah, iconic is kind of the word I'm looking for. Because again, I don't want to build an entire deck. I just want to give the viewer an idea of what you can do. Gorya's Vengeance is, in my opinion, the perfect example. You sacrifice your commander to one of the altars, and then you play Gorya's Vengeance, reanimate it, and voila, you can untap 10 more lands. This is perfect. I'm not going to look further because, again, like in my opinion, that is what I want the viewer to be able to do. To still have some fun looking for these gems, these hidden pieces that make or break a commander deck. So we now have instant speed. Let's remove this. It's just not iconic enough. I think I'm just going to talk about Corpse Dance and Gorya's Vengeance in the video. And then, so now we have instants. We're still not making the best use of the black-green pest creature tokens. They might just be a nice to have. Yeah. One more thing I always try to remember is key creatures. But let's see if I remember the card. There is, I believe it's the Temur Sabertooth. It is a very notable creature, if it's the one that I think of. Yes, it is a mono-green creature that can make perfect use of infinite mana. Why? Because for 4 mana, you play a 4/3, not impressive. But for 2 mana, you can return another creature to your hand to give it indestructible. We don't care about the indestructible. What we care about is this. Yeah, it's pretty obvious, right? We play Temur Sabertooth with Belladros because we want infinite mana. Again, this is the way I think about Belladros. It's like 7 mana, kind of hopefully win the game. The only thing that comes to mind that I would still maybe like to talk about is 10 life is a lot. How do we mitigate this damage? It reminds me a bit of maybe we're gonna add it. Bolus Citadel, is that how you write it? Bolus Citadel. Well, I'm not a native speaker, so I don't care. As in, I mean, Bolus Citadel might be a bit better. Let's add the tag. Let's choose non-foil. Looks a bit weird. You go for old border. Let's just do the normal one. Right, so Beledros and Bolus Citadel. Both expensive cards. This provides card advantage, but it also provides mana cheating. This just provides mana cheating, and you need to do, well, you could say creating green and black pests is a bit of card advantage, but who are we kidding? This is Commander. Nobody cares about your 1/1 green black pests. So I think these go into the same deck, and we need to find a good way to mitigate the life loss. But first, I think I remember a 2-mana instant that is from Strixhaven. Can I not select the set? Oh, I can. Strixhaven. I'm super zoomed in, so I'm having a hard time finding the stuff that I'm looking for. And it is, of course, the color is black. Where you can sacrifice, yes, Plumb the Forbidden, I think, is a perfect spell. Of course, like when you're looking at a creature from a set, you can expect to find good cards in the same set, right? They do this for a reason. Like the draft environment needs to make sense. So of course we're gonna find a good card for Beledros in Strixhaven, and Plumb the Forbidden is kind of perfect to make use of those tokens. 2 mana. As an additional cost, you may sacrifice 1 or more creatures. When you do, copy this spell for each creature sacrificed this way, and then you draw a card and you lose a life for, well, each creature you sacrificed +1. I think I'm going to mention this card. Not sure about the rest. Yeah, this is just more pests. And then, again, when I'm out of ideas, usually then I look at EDHREC to fill in the gaps. This is how I personally build decks, right? I try to come up with as much as I possibly can myself. And then I look at EDHREC. The problem I'm trying to solve now is the life gain. So, of course, yeah, why didn't I think of Exsanguinate? Well, sometimes it is that way. But Exsanguinate is... Damn, how do you write that? Exsanguinate should be sanguinate. Yeah. Cards like this are perfect. Because you can just, let's say you're still at 40. Yeah, you're gonna gain a lot of life. This is the perfect spell. Sometimes in my videos, I also like just drop the line that, well, how you win with infinite mana is kind of up to you, because let's be honest, it is. There's infinite ways to win with infinite mana. Nice. So that's Beledros. Sometimes when I'm recording videos, I have more ideas, and then I will like add those cards. But for now, since I'm just trying to get this done so I can start recording, which is the most fun part, let's move on to Camellia the Seed Miser. What a word. 3 mana, 3/3 Squirrel Warlock. Menace. Other squirrels you control have menace. And when you sacrifice 1 or more foods, create a 1/1 green squirrel creature token. For 2 mana and foraging, so exiling 3 cards or sacrificing a food, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on each other squirrel you control. I'm going to be honest, this might be a candidate that I'm kicking from the list. I do this very vibes-based because it's a personal list. And sometimes you also need to compare. And the big bad evil guy is right below, lurking in the shadows, and it's Cheddarfang. So when we're comparing Camellia, the Seed Miser, and Cheddarfang, we see they're both 3 mana, 3/3 scrolls. But Cheddarfang has a built-in token doubler. Now, Commander is a perfect format to play cards, not because they're good or better than other cards, but because you like them. But for me, there's also always an aspect of, like, is it worth it, and what are the opportunity costs? What I'm missing out on when I'm not playing Cheddarfang as my commander. And also, is there, like, just put it plainly, is there something interesting about Camellia the Seed Miser? So if you love squirrels, that is the perfect unique selling point. You like squirrels, so you play a squirrel commander. Mechanically speaking, Menace and Menace Tribal is a thing that you could pair with your squirrel tribal. But in general, I mean, that's the problem with tribal decks often, is every creature that is of a different tribe will end up costing you. And a lot of the Menace Tribal is, I think, dinosaurs and, I don't know, nightmares, for example. When you sacrifice one or more foods, create a squirrel. I think if you're into Universes Beyond, then the Lord of the Rings set will provide a lot of food synergies. I don't like Universes Beyond, so I kind of get to choose to ignore it. Which I think means, unfortunately, Camellia has to go, and we're going to move to Carthaline. I just don't have anything that I think is worth talking about. Other people might have a super striking idea. I don't. So, I'm sorry, Camellia. Go back to Seed Mising. We're also going to delete it. I think I will have to use the VOD. I forgot to make comments. So actually, let's do it like this. I think this is the more interesting tab for anyone anyways. And it's nicer for me. I'm going to watch the VOD and then make comments on what I said here. Next in line is Carthaline. So let's move him to the main deck. Oops, sorry. Let's add one. And move one to the sideboard, I guess. So Karth is also, like, he screams at you what you want to do with him. Planeswalkers you control dies. So when a Planeswalker you control dies, or when Karth enters, you look at 7 cards, you reveal a Planeswalker card from among them, and put it into your hand. But also, more importantly, Planeswalker loyalty abilities you activate cost an additional 1 to activate. Now, usually the clause activate more, cost more to activate is pretty bad. But of course, we're talking loyalty abilities here. This one is pretty straightforward in research, I would say. Because what you're always going to do, let's add a tag. Car. Is he from Aetherdrift? Who knows? So, I mean, you're looking at Planeswalkers. Everything else comes later. Of course, Planeswalker, we're also always thinking proliferate. Right? So we have a few cards in the back of our head already. But let's first check out if it's even worth it to build around them. Again, like, strictly speaking, Commander, if you want to do it, it's worth it. But, like, just for me to see if I find the payoff interesting enough. I'm going to ignore a bunch of these. Having a 6 mana, 7 loyalty guy that -1s to create a 2/2 green wolf, not interesting. Ashok, Wicked Manipulator, I don't know. 5 mana. If you would pay life, while your library has that many cards in it, exile that many cards from the top of your library instead. Look at the top 2 cards of your library, exile one of them and put the other one in the hand. So what we're looking for is also breakpoints. So the ult is -7, which means if you have Karth out and you +1 once, next turn you can ult. And target player exiles the top X cards of their library, where X is the total mana value of cards you own in exile. Unfortunately, this is not the best ultimate to pull off immediately. The way I think about it is I kind of want Planeswalkers that you would also pair with doubling season. Oh, hey. Hamal is good. Yeah, I assume that is why people tell viewers to click the bell or whatever. I don't know how YouTube works. But nice to have you. Interesting. We have Davriel who just minus zeros to make a player discard a card. That's worth at least like noting down. I don't think it's good enough in Commander since Planeswalkers are pretty bad in Commander. They're just like running targets. So we have a -6 and a +3. This works. But again, the payoff unfortunately is pretty bad. Here we have a +2 and an 8. Of course, all of these are still good, and you will need a high density. But I always like to showcase what I like to call the Christmas Wonderland. As in, like, the best you can possibly hope to do. So let's say a Garruk, I might showcase, because for +1, you create 2/2 green wolf tokens. And then if one of them dies, you can even emblem and still keep Garruk around. What else is there? The Garruks are less interesting for the most part. I am gonna leave the decision to the viewer when it comes to like deciding what the best thing they can do or what the second best thing you can do is. Usually I look for the very best thing. So let's say here, also not an emblem. We're kind of looking for emblems here, right? We want to +1 and next turn have something for the rest of the game. So example, Liliana is pretty good. This one. For 2, you will create 2 black zombie creature tokens and mill 2 cards, and then next turn you can already ult. Stuff like this is worth showcasing. Have you had a look at Black's Vexing Pest? Yes. I actually have, I think, almost every Strixhaven commander. Because I opened 2 displays. And I'm not sure if he's in the list, but I definitely want to talk about him. There's 2 commanders that I have in mind that are not on the list, and Black's is one of them. I'll check when it comes to it. Let's first finish like talking about the planeswalkers you're looking for. Just have a quick look through. Because again, like spending more than 15 to 30 minutes per commander that I want to talk about is just not very feasible. Here we have a case of a... Well, here it doesn't make a difference. You +1 and then next turn you can -5. Again, we're looking for the magical Christmas Wonderland. Although, you could talk about the upside of +2ing Anissa, and then next turn keeping her around. So maybe I'm going to talk about this in a video, right? Karth makes it so this is +2, and then you keep her around the next turn. Let's find some good black examples. 3 makes you go to 6. 2 makes you go to 7. I already have an example of mitigating the minus cost on some of these abilities, so that's not particularly interesting. +2 makes you go to 8. This is designed so you can ult immediately. +3 makes you go to 7. Ooh, I think Sorin is a great example because the effect is also bonkers. And I mean, people just like effects like this. If you're the one who's, you know, controlling someone during the next turn. So I think this is perfect, right? You have an example, you have Karth out, you play this, you +3, somehow manage to protect Sorin, and then next turn you can just, control someone's turn. That might be it. Usually I showcase like up to 3 cards on the screen at the same time. And I think we have good examples. So let's try to cover this commander from a different angle. We have some good examples of planeswalkers that you could pair with Karth, but of course your deck is not going to be Karth and planeswalkers. Karth's first ability is just card advantage. So we'll have to approach this from a more generic standpoint. What is good with Planeswalkers? And as I've already said, the classic is proliferate. Right? You can proliferate the Planeswalker counters. Oof. What is that artwork? And when I'm going for a generic strategy that everybody knows exists, I usually tend to showcase cards that are representative for the entire thing. So while all of these cards might end up in a deck, for example, Canker Bloom is a super good card. It's flexible and it can proliferate. This is what you usually want to do, but in a pinch, you can get rid of anything that's artifact or enchantment. But I'm looking for like Evolution Sage. This really, I think, drives the point home of what you want to do in your deck. Showcasing a new card, Hyperfect Morkan might be worth it, but it's a typo synergy commander, right? Tap 3 elves, proliferate. And Karth, I believe, is just a human. Is what racist elves would say. Yeah, he's a human warrior. So let's look for another striking example. Ooh, I believe Staff of Completion might be very interesting because this serves multiple functions. It can kind of do the thing we just talked about, proliferating, but also it can, in a pinch, destroy one of your Planeswalkers to trigger Karth's first ability. So Staff of Completion is in. And then if I find one more striking example, might include it, but I don't, and that's perfectly fine. Because in the video, I'll mention proliferate, and then people will know what to look for, and that's all I care about. And like figuring out the details is up to them. Lastly, what I usually do, the EDA trick. Check if I forgot anything that is super obvious. So we see a bunch of Planeswalkers. We see the Chain Veil. I think the Chain Veil is worth mentioning. Right? Yeah, it just doubles up Planeswalkers. And I might add Doubling Season as well. So we were saying Chain Veil. Damn. It's hard to talk with the microphone in front of my face. Chain Veil. And we were also talking Doubling Season. Yeah. And those are like, I mean, they're just doublers, right? Always good in a Planeswalker deck. Unfortunately, you don't have access to Inexorable Tide because we're not blue, which would make it so whenever you play a non-creature spell, you proliferate, I believe. But this will have to do, right? Let's do a quick check again, but I don't think most people go deeper than that. And I don't have a super hipster idea about this. Yeah, like there's the Vorinclexes, the ramp. That's usually what people do. Right, I just want to showcase. Chatterfang. Oh, I have nightmares about Chatterfang. It is so strong. It is also... This might be personal bias, but I find it to be a bit boring. So I might end up cutting it from the list. Usually I try to end up with around 30 commanders because the videos are already super long. And I know I will be adding the one that was mentioned in chat. The blacks, because I believe, if I remember correctly, it gives like, it might be double-sided even, which I find very interesting. Let's do it right now. Let's add blacks. Yes, search for blacks. And I find the concept of a sorcery that goes back to your command zone super interesting. I think that alone is worth talking about it. Let's move to sideboard. And the other one, give me a quick second. I recently heard Reduke talk about a mechanic in an official YouTube video by Wizards of the Coast. And it sent me down a rabbit hole. We're talking about Verald's the Scar Striped. Very interesting. I'm gonna give a quick idea of what this is about. So in in Lorwyn Eclipsed, they released a 1 mana 7/7 and a 2 mana 6/6. Both of these creatures, of course, come with heavy downsides in the form of -1/-1 counters. Varels makes use of a mechanic that might be almost exclusive to Ravnica. At least that's where it was first printed. That's where most of the support is. And this mechanic makes it so you can exile a creature card from your graveyard to give +1/+1 counters to something that's on your battlefield. Now, Varels here gives this to every creature. So cards like Death Shadow, a 1 mana 13/13, that's not actually a 13/13, of course, in most cases, it's just 1 black mana, give a creature 13 +1/+1 counters. And now with the Blight support from Lorwyn Eclipsed, we have a bunch of these cards that have, in the bottom right, super high stats because they enter with -1/-1 counters. And that is something that's really interesting to keep in mind. Like just these outliers in Magic design, a 1 mana 13/13, a 1 mana 7/7. These are the cards that really spark my interest because I just know there's stuff that's broken that you can do with them. So let's move one of these to the main deck. I had a discussion about this card yesterday. Chevel, Bane of Monsters is pretty innocuous. It's a 2 mana commander. If you're watching my YouTube videos, you know I just love 2 mana commanders. It's a 1/3 human rogue, Death Touch. At the beginning of your upkeep, if your opponents control no permanents with a bounty counter on them, put a bounty counter on target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls. And whenever a permanent an opponent controls with a bounty counter on it dies, you gain 3 life and draw a card. Commanders like this are sometimes difficult to build for. Excuse me, I'm gonna take a sip of water. Because they don't send you down a path immediately. This does not scream, build this round of typal synergy around me. This does not scream, do this and that. Even the classic, if you read counter, you usually think proliferate. But multiple bounty counters, if I read this correctly, yeah, don't draw you multiple cards. So you would need multiple counters and then move counters around, which is possible among your own permanents. I'm not sure how easy it is with opposing permanents. So this is a bit of a toughie, honestly. If you have any ideas, you can like give me pointers. Nothing that immediately comes to mind. I don't think this is a bad commander. I would like building around it. But we're also thinking content here, right? If this is just a 2 mana commander where you play good black and green cards and a bunch of removal spells, that's not particularly interesting to talk about and not particularly interesting to listen about for viewers. So we might look into rogues a bit. And I know there's cards that say when a creature with a counter on it dies, you draw a card. So with a toughie like this, I might actually start off with EDA Trek. What's it called? Cheville. And see if people have a better idea, because this is not me boasting about how good my deck building skills is, like the videos are. It's always about pitching commanders to viewers to spark their creativity, and to make them go down the rabbit hole. So we can see the tags are Death Touch, interesting. Control, Fight. Fight is a good keyword. I actually like that. I also like this because he always reminds me of a Witcher with the amulet. So, like, why not make a deck that gives someone monsters and then fights them? Could be fun. Exactly. Yeah. I'm thinking, wait, what? There's a card that does bounty counters? Oh, this is why I love doing this content. You just find cards that are so old and obscure. Okay, so apparently bounty counter is a thing. So this is usually where I stop using EDH Rec. It gave me an idea. I don't want, you know, like, I don't want pre-chewed food from EDH Rec. So let's look for bounty counter. Because that's interesting. That is something I would like to share in the video. Because I'm sure not, like, many people like me did not know there were other cards that put bounty counters on target creature or planeswalker. Let's see. So let's put bounty counters on non-black creatures. Meh. This one puts bounty counters on creatures of planeswalkers. Only activate as a sorcery. And whenever a creature or planeswalker an opponent controls with a bounty counter on it is dealt damage, destroyed. Okay, so we have multiple bounty counters. That's pretty useful. This one is a human rogue. What are you? You're a human archer minion. Okay. I think since this has Death Touch, we are also looking for not fight, because, well, fight. We don't want to fight with our 1/3. We want cards that deal damage equal to power. So I'm going to look for that. Deal damage equal to power. Are those cards mostly -1 or +1/+1 counter related? That's very possible. The last time I like remembered cards like that, or like looked at cards like that, was definitely when I was looking at a -1/-1 deck. So it's possible that cards like Massacre Girl only care about -1/-1 counters. But that's something that I usually then research to see if that's true. Okay, so as always, this is a card that would end up in the deck, most likely, but I'm looking for something more representative. I'm going to add it for now, but I'm looking for good cards that people might also know when I'm talking about well-known effects. And finding the obscure then is up to the viewer. This is instant speed, so it's just straight up better as a sorcery. I really like this. I found it recently. The team cards from Battle Bond might not be applicable here. Yeah, 1 mana is good enough. This is the type of representation I'm looking for. And now let's double check what you were saying. Counter dies whenever. I hope this will find some cards. 103 cards. Okay. Let's double check. So something like Black Market might be worth mentioning if I don't mention it enough during the video already. This is a card that, of course, fits into many strategies. Yes, so this is what you were talking about, like -1/-1 counter. But let's see if there's something else. Not immediately. On it dies. On it dies. I thought that maybe the slug, of course it's not the colors we're looking for, but maybe that one cared about counters. +1/+1. +1/+1. So maybe the correct way to search this would be to exclude +1/+1. But I assume some cards would maybe hand out counters that are either +1 and -1, but also care about just counters. But of course, like, the eye test is always also a good way to look at this. If everything just cares about +1/+1 and -1/-1 counters, then there might not be enough room. Here we do a hit counter. No, but this is very, like, this is a closed system. Hit counter. Assassins, mercenaries, rogues have death touch, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, you remove a hit counter. So unfortunately, there's a bit of a closed system card. -1/-1 Obnixilis. Also very fun. Monocolored, kind of my pet strategy. Monocolored decks. I really like this streaming format. Talking about Magic is so much more fun than just sitting there in silence and doing the research myself. And maybe I remember what I talked about well enough, so I don't need to. Here we can see a different example, by the way, of a double-faced card, but it's a creature on the backside, which I find less interesting. But also, yeah, a Strixhaven Commander. So yeah, you were right, as we suspected. Mostly +1/+1 and -1/-1 counters. That begs the question if I have enough interesting stuff to talk about with Chivil. I might just give it a quick shout out as like, yeah, what I find particularly cool about this card is that he's like, he could be a young Vesemir from The Witcher. Which, again, this is Commander, right? This is a format where you can play cards because you think they look cool. And then quickly mention the bounty counters. I don't think I want to cut him. He's just a Giga Chad. I really like him. But let's move on. Another originally Strixhaven card. Let's add one. And let's move one. Move to main deck. One. Oh, by the way, this still needs a tag. Che for Chad. Why is this still an untagged creature? It's not even a creature. What the hell? Okay. Do we now remove this? Okay, I'm a bit confused. Let's give this its own tag. Dean. As a German, the Dean norm has to be upheld. Okay, we have a 2-mana Planeswalker, which is great. I love 2-mana Planeswalkers. Whenever you gain life, each opponent loses 1 life. And for a 1, you sacrifice another creature. To give this +X/+0, where X is a sacrificed creature's power. So we have 2 ways to approach this. We could treat this as your typical, like, linking up life gain and life loss. So we're thinking the classic combo of those 2 enchantments. Whenever somebody loses life, you gain life. Whenever you gain life, somebody loses life. I think those cards, those combos will end up in this deck. What I find a bit more interesting, though, is the second ability that kind of turns us into a Voltron Commander. Which is also interesting because that's a bit of an unusual pair. So for this commander, I'm going to do something else. I have been working, just for my own sake, on a... Oh, this is not a deck I own, unfortunately. Let's see. I was working on a deck where you lose a bunch of life. And let me actually close this for good. You lose a bunch of life, and then you heal back. And this might be interesting for a Dina deck. Some of these cards anyways. So, classic examples, Enduring Tenacity. It's the classic effect. Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. Of course, we gain life in small increments, but I already see a good link. So let's add this to another deck. Let's do, oh god, most interesting Commander series. Golgari, right. The way I see a link between us is we have a commander that has huge power stats. And whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. The obvious link is, well, it's lifelink. Let's look for a few more cards that take advantage of gaining life or huge stats. There's just generically good cards like Black Market Connection, but in my opinion, like, these don't deserve a shout out because they're just so good that it's unnecessary to mention them. Everybody knows them anyways. I'm gonna add Necrologica. Can only play this at your end step, but you can pay X life and draw X cards. This is kind of the opposite direction that we want to go in, right? We want to go up, not down, like Obi-Wan in Star Wars Part 3. But if you have a bunch of life, you want to spend a bunch of life. Here you sacrifice any number of creatures, then you gain 3 life for the sacrificed creature. This is perfect. This is a Strixhaven commander. We're thinking pests. Right? So let's add this as well. And then, I mean, hatred. Maybe not hatred. Okay. Let's return and see what we found. I might need to refresh this page. So we were kind of thinking, we have high life totals. And oftentimes in black, there's this link between gaining life and opponents losing life. We also... This one is tricky. The first line of text makes me think we go wide and we have effects that trigger off of every token we create gains us a life, or every token that dies gains us a life, right? But that's a very go wide strategy. The second one is more go tall. Let's add Basilisk's Collar because I want to talk about the link between her high power stat. Basilisk Collar is without yes, maybe? Or I simply mistyped. Basilisk Collar. This card will be used to to link her high power and a life link. And the other cards that whenever you gain life, Enduring Tenacity type cards, whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. And then Sanguine Bond and Exquisite Blood, right? I don't like these cards that can just slot in a lot of decks, but realistically speaking, this is what people will play. And it's just also a pointer. Like whenever an opponent loses life, you gain. Whenever you gain, target opponent loses. And then you have like a Basilisk Collar, whatever. I really like Plunge into Darkness. Sacrifice any number of creatures, then you gain 3 life for each sacrificed creature. As I mentioned, this is a Strixhaven card. So when looking for help, let's look at Strixhaven. School of Mages. And maybe for the text pest token. I already know one card. Well, it was mentioned in chat earlier. Let's look at the backside. This is just card advantage. Nice. I don't think this is the card where you play, the deck where you play blacks. When it enters, gain a pest. This is a flexible card, but flexible cards are not what we're talking about usually. I was thinking Tend the Pests. Sacrifice a creature, create X/1/1 black/green pest creature tokens. So you gain a bunch of pests because you have a big creature. And then maybe the next link is you have a bunch of creatures. So you want to play creatures that care about you having a bunch of creatures. So let's look at power equal number creatures. Will we find something like this? Yeah, so for me, this is like a childhood card. We're looking for cards like this. I think to tie it together, the go wide and go tall strategy. It's not, we don't care about shadow. I might put this as a representative if I don't find anything better. Wait, is it still worded creatures on the battlefield? But on the battlefield isn't total. We might find better rates for cards that care about creatures on our side of the battlefield. Excuse me. Wow, twice the number of creatures you control. That's actually crazy. Twice the number of creatures you control? This is a perfect card to mention. Like, you drop it later on in the game, and it will just be a... I don't know if the game's going well. It's going to be a 2020. You have 9 tokens in your commander. And then this alone, sacrificing this alone, is enough to make your commander lethal. I think that's actually really good. Most of these, unfortunately, only care about Number of creatures you control. This is like a very good rate, right? It's not double, but it comes down on turn 3. Okay. So now we've created a link between Go Tall. I still don't understand why this is an untagged creature. So I don't know what Moxfield doesn't understand. A bit of a link between Go Tall and Go Wide. I did mention the Scavenge deck that I was building, which cares about really big creatures. Although those creatures aren't that big technically. But there is good payoffs nonetheless. Let me see if I can dig one up. We are looking for cards like maybe Selvala. Let me find a good example here. We're looking for cards like maybe Traverse the Outlands. I'm going to put it as an example. Let's see. Traverse the Outlands. It will show up in a second, so we can talk about it. As an untagged. Where's the untagged sorcery? Man, this website is broken right now. Am I crazy? So basically, let me just describe it because I can't find it right now, which is super weird. We're looking for cards that are a payoff for having Majestic Myriarch or Sign of the Wild in play. So cards that say, draw cards equal to the highest power amongst creatures you control. I think that those are the last cards that I want to mention and talk about. Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to the next one. Glissa Sunslayer, another probably a bit too generic commanders. Let's see if we find something particularly striking and interesting about this. Let's add one and move one to the sideboard. I do this so in the sideboard I just have a clean list of all the commanders that I talked about. First Strike, Death Touch. Already insane combo of keywords. I think that is worth mentioning. First Strike, Death Touch is so annoying to deal with. This in draft, a nightmare. When it deals combat damage to a player, choose one. Draw a card, lose one, destroy enchantment, or remove counters from target permanent. Now that is an interesting mode. First one, generically good. Second one, generically good. This one is a good way to tie in the set low and eclipsed. And then let's just look for counter. It's going to be -1/-1 counter. This is a great way to tie in these cards. I talked about them quite briefly. Bristlebane Battler, for example. 2 mana, 6/6, trample and ward 2. Insane. Creature enters with 5 -1/-1 counters on it. And whenever a creature you control that enters, it's like whenever a creature enters under your control, you get to remove one. Or with Glissa, you get to remove 3 counters. Usually, I think of Glissa as like it kills any Planeswalker and stuff in Standard and in Draft. But here we have a good example, also Moonshadow, of cards that enter on your side with negative counters on it. And this is the type of card that I would be looking to play in my Glissa deck. Let's also look at... Oof. Slumber counters might be specific to Maridlage. Let's see if there's stun counters. That's a problem if you have all these different types of counters. Sometimes difficult to find them. Okay. This creature enters with 6 stun counters on it. Or if Glissa hits with... Did she remove 3 or 2? I think half, right? She removes 3 counters. Yeah. So 2 hits from Glissa, and this is untapped, but of course you also get an untapped step. 3 mana, 6/6. I think this is cute. I think this would spark interest in a standard deck in Commander, this is completely useless. Yeah, Unstoppable Slasher. Also a card I would be playing. It would be kind of standalone, but it's an annoying threat, and you can remove the 2 stun counters immediately. That's less than I was hoping for, but it might be good enough nonetheless. So you could combo your Karth the Lion and your Glissa to kill your own Planeswalkers and trigger Karth's ability. Of course, that's complete and utter garbage, but you could. This might just be a card that I use to showcase the new Blight mechanic, and actually I need to find an example for Blight, and then you Low and Eclipse cards, which is enough for me, right? This will end up in a video, I think, for exactly this reason. But let's look at Blight for a second, because there might be cards that are good. What the hell is this? Oh, it's a Blightstone Colossus. Okay. You may Blight to create goblins, but this is very Kindred focused. Pay 1 Blight to target opponent Blights to activate as a sorcery. I really wanted to talk about the mechanic. That's why I'm looking for a card like this. Put a Blight counter on it. I just need an example, so I'm gonna take the Champion of the Weird. Oh, you need to behold a goblin. Maybe that's not a good example then. Surveil 1. During your turn, you may cast... Ooh, this card is perfect. This card is a mini Glissa. So it Blights 1, it adds counters. It Blights 2, it adds counters. But during your turn, you may cast creature spells from among cards you own exiled with this creature by removing 3 counters from among creatures you control in addition to paying their costs. Well, those counters will be -1/-1 counters. Nice. I think this is like exactly what I'm looking for. Yeah, in these commanders, like support, especially from new sets, is so nice. The Blight mechanic is perfect for something like Glissa. Of course, you might end up saying like Glissa is not the perfect commander for a Blight deck, but Blight is the perfect mechanic for a Glissa deck, at least in a way. I don't think I have much more interesting stuff to say about Glissa, so let's move on. Well, I might have to say more stuff about Glissa. Just a different one. So the Gliss double S tag. Add 1. And move 1 to the main deck. Let's see what this Glissa does. I genuinely don't remember. So First Strike, Death Touch, the same insane combo, which also makes me think fighting spells. So this is one thing I might mention here is fighting spells. Whenever a creature an opponent controls is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may return target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. Immediately, what I'm thinking is we're pairing 0 mana artifacts with fight spells. Maybe. Let's first look for some card to represent fight. It might just be, honestly, it might just be, is it called Prey Upon? Prey On? Prey On? Is that the card? Prey Upon. Okay. I'm just using this as a representative, although I might have to do a deep dive if there's like a perfect artifact that lets you fight. Yeah. We want fight so the combat damage, like, applies. We don't need fight, but fight has good rates. By the way, this is by far not the best. It's not even a good fighting card, but yeah, it stands for the entire card type of fight cards. Here it might be useful. Let's open up Scryfall, by the way. Sometimes when a mechanic is difficult to find just by like Oracle text alone, It's a bit annoying. Let's look for Prey Upon and open the Scryfall Tagger. Because here we can find, like, good tags usually. So, is this similar to Pounce? Okay, Removal Fight. Okay, so this is the tag that I'm looking for. This is everything that's been tagged fight, like Arena, classic example. And all of these, like, various fight cards. What I'm looking for right now is something like Boxing Ring. So whenever a creature you control enters, it fights same mana value and create a treasure token, but only if you fight. Okay. I was looking for an artifact that sacrifices itself, maybe to let something fight. That would be like the perfect bridge between Glissa returning artifacts and Glissa having Death Touch first strike. Wait. Yeah, like cards like Bushwhack is just strictly better than Prey Upon. Yeah, you're right. Like, it's also so basic. Bushwhack. I shouldn't include like the worst kind of card. That's right. Let's dive a bit deeper though. Again, I'm not looking for every good spell that is fight based. Wait, fight is just actually I'm not looking for fight necessarily. I'm looking for dealing damage. So it might be cards like Ram Through. But I'm doing this specific search mostly to find artifacts that maybe let something fight. I really like Longstock Brawl, for example, because you can create a tapped fish for future fighting. Not that necessary. Like, it's a creature that dies. I don't think she cares about non-token creature, right? Yeah. Whenever a creature and opponent. So stuff like Longstock Brawl, I might want to talk about. Longstock Brawl. And also, a card that I always think about when I think of opponent creatures dying is Forbidden Orchard. I think it's just a staple in all of these cards because you can tap it to add any colored mana, but your opponent also gets a 1/1 spirit, which is potentially down the line an extra artifact. Triangle of War. I have never heard of that, I believe. Let's go to Scryfall. Thank you for the suggestion. Triangle of War. What? Classic mistype. Aha. Just target creature you control and target creature an opponent controls. Those creatures fight each other. Perfect suggestion. This is exactly what I'm looking for. It might not be. And again, this is very much in my philosophy of I don't want to build decks for the viewers. I don't think I would end up. Ooh, beautiful art, by the way. I don't think I would end up putting this in. It might end up in my deck, but it's probably not going to be one of the better cards. But it stands for this idea of what I would want to do with the commander. If I did if I spent 20 hours, 30 hours on just building a Glissa deck, this might end up getting cut. But this is what would set me down the path of building a Glissa the Trader deck. And then for sure, I want to mention card type, artifact, mana value 0. I'm thinking this might actually be. I mean, if we're talking power level 4 or like kitchen table where everything goes, there's maybe a way to break a Lion's Eye Diamond here. Let's look for a good 0 mana artifact that you would want to recur. For sure, the one that's like Lotus Petal. 3 attacks. Stuff like Explosive Engineer, just anything that sacrifices itself for value is of course good. We might look into that after this. I mean, I'm gonna mention it, nobody's gonna play it. Yeah, exactly. Like the baubles, Tormod's Crypt, exactly. Like those artifacts are what we're looking for. Also Lotus Petal. Um, that's exactly what we're looking for. Anything else that comes to mind? The Mishra's Bauble. Still crazy that it's a $2 as an uncommon, by the way. Yeah, I think exactly. Let's mention Graveyard Hate. You could do kind of a toolbox strategy where you put stuff into your graveyard deliberately. Welding Jar might be a good one, although Glissa unfortunately hates artifacts and is not an artifact herself. Zurin Orb is just a broken card. Like everything you do with it is unfortunately very broken. Let's just mention Mishra's Bauble. It's the better card. And it stands representative again for the idea of 0 mana artifact that draws cards. And then these are hard to find, so let's look at EDH rec to find some names, just some random names. It's not Glissa Sunseeker, Glissa the... Sorry, I forgot what she's called. She's Glissa the Trader? Glissa the Trader is what we're looking for. Let's just see good value sacrifice artifacts. Yeah, we're thinking Wayfarer's Bauble, right? This is just a decent card that gets better by you being repeatedly able to play it. It would be nicer. I think I'm gonna add it, Wayfarer's Bauble, but it's not particularly like it's good. It's gonna be good in your commander game, but it's not enticing, right? Stuff like Lion's Eye Diamond has people excited when you mention it. This gets nobody excited. The idea of recurring Wayfarer's Bauble does not get anybody excited. Although, again, like it's probably going to be very good in every game. Executioner's Capsule, also a great bridge. It kills something, and then, yeah, like there's a reason why it's in high synergy cards. Executioner. There's probably a million Executioner cards. Executioner's Capsule, so fortunately you're quite high up. I think this is perfect. We mentioned fight. We mentioned artifacts that kill. We mention artifacts that fight. Well, we have a land that creates creatures. We have a fight spell that creates creatures for your opponents. We mentioned 0 mana artifacts. We mentioned value artifacts. Where a creature is into graveyard, you may return target artifact from graveyard to your hand. Yeah, I mean, to me, honestly, it feels it excites me. Nice. A value enjoyer. But think about the average populace, you know? Yeah, I think down the line, this could be a Storm deck. This kind of... It makes me think there has to be a way to go infinite. This almost reads like Escape from the Underworld. Is that the 2 mana red enchantment that would let you repeatedly play stuff from your graveyard? It gives everything the escape mechanic. Yeah. But enough about the Glissas. Let's move on to a different character. Greta. Okay. Again, let's add one. Let's move one. And see what it's all about. And give it attack. 3 mana, 3/3. When it enters, you create a food token. Sacrifice a food. +1/+1 counter. Activate only as a sorcery. Or sacrifice a food, draw a card, and you lose a life. Okay, we're thinking food strategy here. When I'm thinking food, I'm thinking Knight of Sweet's Revenge immediately. When it enters, you create a food token, and foods you control have tap to add a green, which means you can tap the food and sacrifice the food. So every food is also a +1/+1 counter. Underworld Breach, yes, thank you, exactly. I was close to whatever I said. I'm also thinking one of the Jahiras, Friend of the Forest. Apparently there's only one. Let's give her a good artwork, by the way. Switch printing. Yes, so tokens you control have add green. I think those cards will be staples. This is just good in general. And then this is almost perfect because for 7 you can also sacrifice it, and creatures you control get +X/+X, where X is the number of foods you control. Activate only as a sorcery. We are probably also thinking Academy Manufacturer. Academy Manufacturer. Might not end up in the deck because foods are honestly probably easier to create than clues and treasures. But then again, like, creating food and also getting a treasure for it is broken, so of course it ends up in the deck. What am I thinking? Let me take a sip of water. Yapping this much is exhausting. So let's look into food synergies a bit more. So Oracle text, we're gonna say food. And then I know for some of you, this might be completely different. But I am a bit of a snob. Like, I don't judge anyone who likes Universes Beyond, but personally, and all of this is very personal to me, I just don't like Universes Beyond, so I usually exclude it. And then also Universes of Beyond usually gets much more of a highlight, so people also might know the cards better. But mostly, I'll admit this is very personal. Let's look into the good cards that create food. Oh, well, Camellia might actually make an appearance here as just a token maker. Forage is also a good footnote. Let's remember forage as a keyword that cares about. Or actually, I think all the forage cards will appear here. Cash grab, control squirrel, create a food. Not generic enough. When it enters, create 2 foods. When you attack, sacrifice food, mill 3, permanent. This is generically good. Not particularly exciting, but let's add it for now if it's the best thing we can find. We can also talk about the artifacts that are just food in general. Ooh, there's a commander that turns everything into food. Every creature is turned into food, which might be super cool. That will have to be played in this deck. Guess both a creature, create a clue token, a food token, and a treasure token. That's not good enough. I really like the Feasting Troll King. It might not be good in Commander. Let me reread what it does. For sacrificing 3 foods, you get to return Troll King from your graveyard to the battlefield. Well, that's good enough to mention. It's just a very cool card. I avoid Universe Beyond in my deck building. Yeah, same. Even like the franchises I really like. I mean, I absolutely adore Lord of the Rings. But you know, I also really like Magic. Gilded Goose. I also like to give out like kind of generically good cards. I think Gilded Goose is good in a lot of decks. But in this deck, right, this is the deck it was made for, kind of. Of course, I'm exaggerating, but yeah. Gingerbread Cabin, also very nice. Maybe we can mention fetching these at instant speed to create a food token. That's a nice mechanic. During your turn, okay, so this turns every artifact into foods. Might not be particularly interesting. I'm gonna put a pin in this. Like, remember it might not end up in the video. This creates 3 foods on average. But it's not a very good card. The Poisoner, amount of life you gained this turn. Ah, yeah, this is in my sideboard already. Okay, I mean, this is a perfect card to mention. Sometimes in my videos, there's a strategy that appears multiple times, and then all of these commanders that I talk about, they would end up in another commander's deck in the 99. Like, Geo might be your commander. You might be playing I forgot Greta. You might be playing Greta as your commander, but Guillaume will end up in your deck. You might play Guillaume, but then probably Greta ends up in your deck. That's just how it is. There are still slight differences that I like to highlight. So for example, like this is also a very interactive card. You can tap down opponent's stuff by sacrificing food. So there's always different angles to this. Although maybe, yeah, maybe it all kind of has the same or a similar 99. Food. Oh, that is super interesting. That's like a soul cauldron for foods, right? It's up to one turn card. This is a super hype card to talk about. Right? This is a card that just makes you imagine situations where it's insane. And that's the most fun about deck building, in my opinion. Like finding these cards where the skill, not the skill, but like the potential is almost unlimited. For me, at least, that's the most exciting part. Oh, we already have so many examples. This is a very deep pool of cards that you can pull from, which is great for deck building, but a bit hard for when you're just trying to, you know, quickly pitch commanders. Here's a free sacrifice outlet, but we also need to mention other stuff. Let's narrow it down. Wait, the cookbook cat combo should probably get a mention. What's it called? The Cauldron Familia. Tireless Provisioner needs a mention. Tough Cookie. It was good in some context. I don't remember which context. It was probably like a draft environment. Trail of Crumb. Yeah, it's so deep. Oh, sorry. I'm thinking Witch's Oven, not. Okay, so there's two packages here. There's Witch's Oven and the cat, and then there's Underworld Cookbook, and oof, I don't think I remember the name. Okay, so step by step. Cauldron Familia. It doesn't work like this, right? No, okay, it does. And then, sorry. Nutrient Block is an artifact that is a food from Edges of Eternity, relatively new. Might be good to highlight. It's the one I remember. It creates like a food on ETB, and when it leaves or something like that. Nutrient Block. Let's see. No, Indestructible is completely different. Indestructible, sacrifice gain 3 when it's... Oh, perfect. Again, thank you for the suggestion. The fact alone that this replaces itself when you sacrifice it, which your commander can do, very good suggestion. Thank you. This is what I love, why I love doing this. I mean, even just in the comments, people often point out cards that I don't know, because to be quite honest, I find the release schedule of Magic to be super tiring, and it burns me out more than it gets me excited. So I don't always keep up with current Magic, even though like Edges of Eternity was a set that I really like. It's one of the coolest set they've done in a while. Not as cool as Lorwyn, but that's just my opinion. So yeah, like especially like this just a random comment is something that you miss out on if you don't follow closely. But it's such a nice role player. So thanks for the suggestion. But I was looking for... I might have to find it this way. Artifact enters, return, hand. Damn. Artifact, return hand. Underworld Cookbook. I might have to find it later. Yeah. Yeah. Also happy that it's only 3 sets. Yeah. Finally, they're returning to a solid structure where their play design team is not completely overworked, and we will have way less mistakes of cards in Standard this year. For sure, for sure. Yes, so all of this goes into the Greta deck. There is... Oh, it's... The card pool is almost too deep to highlight. These are always the sections that take up like 10 minutes in the video when there's so many cool cards to highlight. Because let's be honest, outside of the, I assume it was a Lord of the Rings precon. This is not interesting enough in my opinion. Outside of the precon, for Lord of the Rings, the Hobbit precon, food is not the most prevalent strategy. It's so good. It kind of doubles as a Guillaume. Yeah, outside of the strategy, it's not super prevalent. And what I really like about strategies that have support but maybe aren't prevalent is, like, even a card like Academy Manufacturer, which is maybe the most generic payoff here, is not that expensive. And these synergy-driven decks and pieces are very affordable. If we compare this to, let's say, yeah, Belby, right? It's about mana cheating. And if we look at the payoffs here, it's like $10, $4, like the least expensive one. That is pretty cheap. $34, $10, right? All of these big haymakers, super expensive. So I like these very synergy-driven decks a whole lot. This is what I'm looking for because, I mean, I'm not exactly the richest person in the world. So a deck like this is so much more appealing than a deck like Belby, to me, personally. I'll still talk about Belby because in theory, she's very exciting. And then you start deck building and see the price down here go up and up and up. And then you're like, yeah, well, maybe actually not. Let's see if Griswold faces the same issues as Belby. Let's add one. Let's move to main deck. And let's give it a tag. Gree. 3 mana, 3/3 Troll Shaman. Sometimes, I mean, it's worth highlighting the tags, but so far, I don't believe there were crazy tags. Like, Zombie Elf don't particularly strike me as a fighting strategy. Elves mostly hate artifacts. There might be some synergy that I might have overlooked. Griswold the Dread Soa. Trample. Each player creates a 1/1 green plant creature token. And whenever a creature token dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Griswold. Okay, so first things first. Whenever a creature token dies, we're thinking Forbidden Orchard. We are thinking of Gift of Fish. Nice. For the first time here, like, we have huge synergy between different cards. Whenever a creature token dies. This could also be a good moment to talk about these cards that give your opponents a bunch of tokens for free. So I am thinking of the Hunted cycle. So let's make them 1/1s, because 1/1s are just incredibly easy to kill with a bunch of AoE. But yeah, like cards like Hunted Dog. Target opponent creates 2 1/1 white dogs. Hunted Troll, 4 1/1 fairies. Super easy. There is the Magic's version of the Trojan Horse, which it's probably called the Acroan Horse, right? Acroan Horse, right? I think that was, yeah, exactly. Cards like this, again, these are cards that might end up in my considering list, not in the main deck. Because let's be honest, it's a 4 mana do nothing card for the most part of the game. But again, it's a card that I use to highlight the way I think about commanders. Some of these are hot garbage. But also in Commander, if you want to build a tier 1 or 2, like bracket 1 or 2 deck, a Griswold deck, then it might be the perfect card. I assume most people are going to play between bracket 2 and 3, where a Crone Horse might not be good enough. It might be, but who knows? When I'm thinking of this, I think of enchantments that give everything -1/-1 permanently. I really dislike searching for -1/-1 counters. I always forget how to do it. There's like, oh, there's the Kamigawa card, Midnight, but there's infinite Midnight cards. It's like a really long name. Let's see if I find it real quick. It's very striking art. Might also have a completely different name. Advanced search, Oracle text, creatures. 1. And then let's say what I'm looking for is an enchantment. Let's see if this works. Everything's +1/+1, so we white creatures. If it's a green creatures, genuinely like insane card for our deck. Yeah, Engineer Plague, maybe not the best example. There's better ones, but you could choose Plant and give all plants -1/-1. I love Lurrus, by the way. It is so cool. Lurrus was the card that carried me to my highest rank I ever had in Magic Arena, which was 123 on the ladder. And ever since, I've been dying to build a Killian Lurrus black-white Spellslinger deck. But so far, I know it's weird to pair Lurrus with Spellslinger, but so far not enough Spellslinger support. I'm waiting for the next Strixhaven. Let's find a... Yeah, I was thinking of Knight of Souls Betrayal. All creatures get -1/-1. Yeah, I think that's good enough. Choose creature type. Let's see if we can add green to this, by the way. If there's a green hate piece. Oh my god. All forests and Sprawlings are 1/1s, and then you give everything -1/-1. Disgusting. Because you could pair this with the land that turns everything into a forest. That is disgusting. I'm going to mention it. Yeah, no, nothing that gives green creatures -1/-1 across the board. And I am thinking of Yavimaya something. Yavimaya Cradle of Growth. Ew, Illness in the Ranks. Illness in the Ranks. I remember that card by name only. Let's see what it does. This could be fun. I really like that you're pitching in. Again, because like everyone has different ideas, and let's Illness in the Ranks. Oh, perfect. See, this is why you're here. I think maybe if I wasn't live and I'd be more chill, I'd find this card, like go to EDH rec. But you know, I'm in a bit of a different mindset when I'm live. I realize. But yeah, of course, like this is the perfect card for this deck. Yeah, nice. This would have definitely also gotten a comment if I didn't mention it, because people are, you know, like, this is the type of card that people remember. It's such a nice role player. Let's see if we're missing an obvious angle on this commander. So end step, your end step. Is there a way I know to double end steps? I only know how to double upkeeps. 1/1 green plant creature token. Each player also, by the way. And whenever a creature token dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Griswold. So there's obvious token strategies. The biggest token makers. The first thing I want to do is look into plant strategies. So let's look for plant. Plant, of course, also mostly creature tokens, right? Yes. So I assume most people would put Avenger of Zendikar into their decks. Is there better stuff? Differently named tokens we don't care about. Poison Dagger is a card that I always want to put in my decks, and then I think it's probably not good enough. I was thinking Insidious Roots, because creature tokens you have. Ooh, perfect card also for one of the last cards we talked about. Creature tokens you control have. Oh, actually, no, that was a food deck, right? so maybe not. But yeah, whenever one or more creature cards leave your graveyard, create a plant, and then put a +1/+1 counter on each plant token. This is a card that's very strong, so it might be worth adding in ways to remove cards from graveyards, simply for like Insidious Roots. Cards that are generically good that happen to coincide with this effect. Avengers wants to stick around, your commander doesn't. Let's see. We'll double check the synergy. Land cards are put in your graveyard. Sacrifice 3 creatures. Because you are making a bunch of tokens as well. You might not always have these -1/-1 effects. But I remember like it puts +1/+1 counters on everything, right? Need to scroll down quite far. So because it puts counters, right? The way I would think about it is sometimes this is a bunch of die triggers for your commander. Sometimes, though, you have Avenger of Zendikar on the board and not Knights of Soul's Betrayal or Engineer Plague or whatever. And then you play one land, and all your plants are suddenly 1/2. And then you play Knights of Soul Betrayal, and it suddenly becomes one-sided. That's the way I would think about it. This is the type of synergy that I would include in my deck at first. And then, if I find during playtesting that it just doesn't work out, it feels awkward, it feels clunky, then maybe I wouldn't do it. Like maybe I will cut Avenger of Zendikar. In general, like 7 mana is already a huge red flag for me, but I'm also like a bit of competitive pilled. Like I just have a strong bias against expensive cards. So personally, I might not cut it. But the point that you bring this up is also good because that means during my video, I can talk about exactly what I just explained. I don't think this is a strict non-bow. Like, just having these tokens grow huge, also good. I assume there will be enough creature tokens around. There has to be some synergy between these. Yes, so I wanted to talk about... I wanted to add one of the... I think it's the very last card. Yes. Let's add one to the main deck and talk about it real quick. Igra, Eater of All. I believe there's a second one that I'm forgetting right now. Oh, it's probably... Shouldn't it be under untagged creature? I feel like this Moxfield website is trolling me right now. Move to main deck 1. Oh, brother, where art thou? Shouldn't it be under untagged creature? Or does it already have a tag? Maybe it has a tag. Okay, that's annoying. I think it already has a tag and it appears somewhere here. Igra. 2 out of 2. Ah, yes. Okay, nice. Now we just have 4 copies. So yes, this is a card that turns all creatures into food. Maybe it's actually not for this commander, but Igra is definitely for Greta, right? Sacrifice a food, other creatures are food. It just gives you flexibility. It's like a cool card to mention. By the way, way too many cards. I'll need to find a way to cut this down. And we're still missing the something devil that works with Underworld Codebook. So, but back on the task. I don't actually think this deserves the Griswold tag. Okay. We already have good stuff to talk about. We have the -1/-1 stuff. We have Gift of Fish that we can mention. We have Life and Limb and Knights of Soul Betrayal as as the most disgusting Armageddon ever. So this might be good enough. We talk about the Hunted cycle. And then, like, it's also good. Oh. Enjoy the rest of your day. Or good night, I guess. So yes, we have good stuff to talk about here. And it's good to leave stuff open also. Like maybe this is the engagement baiter in me saying this, but if the comments have something to add, that's just a nice upside. Like people are gonna know way more about Griswold because they've built a Griswold deck, maybe, than I could ever find out in these 15 to 30 minutes that I spent per commander. Grist, very interesting. Had one. A Planeswalker commander. That is not actually a Planeswalker. Move to main deck 1. Okay. Again, a lot of name doublings here. So, 4-letter tag it is. A 1-mana 1/2. 1-mana commander, kind of goated. Death Touch. And when it enters the battlefield under your control from the graveyard, or if you cast it from your graveyard, you pay 1. If you do, exile it and then return it. Grist or another creature, yeah. Exile it and return it. This should be pretty easy. This clause is super easy in black and green to fulfill. There's a bunch of creatures that come back for free, right? We're thinking the weird landfall vampire that comes back. You just pay a green, exile Grist. Let's see what he does. Black and green insect creature token. Mill 2 cards. Put a death touch counter on the token. Ooh, death touch counter on a token is nice. Then destroy target artifact or enchantment for -2. And for each creature card in your graveyard, create a token that's a copy of it. Oh my goodness. Except it's a 1/1 green insect. This is super cool, I think. It might sound cooler than I think it is at first glance. The first way I would think about this is finding enablers for this. Or another creature enters the battlefield is probably the line that we're looking for. So let's say we're looking for creatures that return to battlefield. Let's see if this is the clause that Wizards uses. Sometimes, like, you remember stuff a bit wrong. Let's see if I find examples just by looking at the images. Yes, I'm thinking Bloodghast, but with the correct artwork. Turn 1, you drop Grist, and then maybe you discard a Bloodghast, or you mill a Bloodghast, and then the next land you play will already return Bloodghast to the battlefield. So a typical good opener could look like you play Grist on turn 1. Turn 2, using the same land, you play a mill card. The 1-mana guy that mills you for 3 cards. You mill a Bloodghast or a similar creature. Then you play your second land, has to be green. Bloodghast trigger goes onto the stack, and you can already flip Grist turn 2. That's the kind of scenario that I like to describe, because again, I want to get people excited. Let's find other good examples. We don't need to go super in depth here. But they need to reanimate it. Let's add the battlefield clause here, by the way. Oh no, it already is in there. It's annoying that we're still finding so many guys. Angel or Berserker. I'm thinking more... There's better cards than this, I know. Like, than what we see here on average. This is a good role player. Icarid. Beginning of upkeep, if it is in your graveyard, exile a black creature card other than Icarid from your graveyard. If you do, return it to battlefield. Great way to repeatedly transform Grist, because also you need to sacrifice it at end step. So later on, should Grist die, this will probably still be in your graveyard. This is perfect. I think that's two nice enablers. And then I don't think I'll go much deeper. I should have definitely prepared some honey, by the way. This is oof, really hard on the voice. Like some nice ginger honey tea would have been perfect. Grist. These are your enablers. Now let's move on to the backside. First of all, create a 1/1 black and green insect creature token, then mill 2 cards. Put a death touch counter on the token if a black card was milled this way. This means, maybe worth mentioning, that most of your deck will be black cards. You won't be playing that many green cards. If you put green cards in your deck, you probably want a good justification. -2 is just nice to have. There's nothing to build around here, I believe. And then the -6. Create a token that's a copy of every creature card in your graveyard. That means for this specific clause, we are looking for the classics. I feel like this is the type of card profile that I'm looking for the most. Strong ETBs and maybe high additional casting cost. The classic examples are some good reanimator targets. Archon of Cruelty is my go-to card to explain the profile I'm looking for here. When it enters, target opponent sacrifices a creature, planeswalker discards a card, loses 3 life. You draw a card, you gain 3 life. Better in 1v1 formats, of course. But I think the idea is clear. Even a 1/1 black and green insect copy token of this does the job wonderfully. Enters or attacks. Since this is such a widespread thing, I'm gonna look at the EDA trick for this. Grist Voracious Lava. Grist Voracious Lava. Because, yeah, there's just like a million cards you could... Sir Conrad, of course. Let's give Sir Conrad a mention. Crazy that he hasn't already. No, I think he has one mention in the video already on the first commander. And then we can talk about Dredge. How good is Dredge? Dredge is always good as an enabler. Maybe we'll talk about it. Golgari Grave Troll. But what I'm looking for is, yeah, stuff like Massacre Worm, right? Massacre Worm, really good. Gray Merchant of Asphodel. A classic Gary? It's a traded token that's a copy of it. Okay. I think that's fine. Let's also look at as additional cost. Some cards to cast. We're looking for creature, of course. And then let's say mana value greater than 5. We're looking for haymakers. Some cards are gatekept by having extremely high stipulations to cast them. For example, this guy costs 8 mana. You can reduce this by sacrificing any number of creatures. Already pretty good with Grist because you create a lot of creature tokens. Also, when it enters, up to one target player's life total becomes half their starting life total. So some games this will deal 20 if someone's full life. If you have a life game opponent, this can deal up to, I don't know, 100 damage, right? Maybe Maybe not the most traditional, because this is a cost that is sometimes very desirable, but let's see. 7 mana Dusk Mangler. Additional cost, sacrifice a creature, discard a card, or pay 4 life. All of this, not that nice, but when it enters, each opponent sacrifices a creature, discards a card, and loses 4 life. Getting a 1/1 insect token from this is super desirable. Very, very nice. Yeah, so this is the type of card that I want to shout out also. And then I'm gonna do one last quick look at insects. Honestly, my brain is mush. I can finally understand why streamers are like say such stupid stuff. After just 2 hours already, I don't remember if I looked at insects. Insect. I for sure did for the first commander, but that was off stream. Let's see if there's good insect synergy. Okay. She's cool. She's also 6 mana for each artifact or creature card in your graveyard, but she kind of perfectly encapsulates Grist's idea. Mill yourself, and then benefit of having stuff in your graveyard. Blex. He's gonna get a mention, but in a different context. I still need to add him to my list, by the way. But yeah, Art Chick. What a name! Thank you very much. Is pretty perfect already. From anywhere during your turn. Nice. This is also nice. Mill 2 cards when 1 or more creature cards are put into your graveyard from anywhere. Create a 1/1 green insect creature token. So also very nice bridge to Grist. Of course, Grist, the Hungering Tide. Probably gonna end up being played here. I think that's enough. And then do we talk about self-mill, or is self-mill so obvious, so generically known, or like, yeah, well known, that it doesn't need a mention in this section? I think what I'm going to mention for sure is the card whose name I forgot. It's a 1-drop that mills you for 3. I know I have it in my scavenge deck, so let me pull that up real quick. We are, of course, looking for Stitcher's Supplier. Oh, whoops. Double P? Man. Stitcher. Fuck you. Man. Am I dyslexic? Stitcher. Oh, thank God. Oof. Almost embarrassing. Not quite there yet. So yeah. Let's add those. And then I think we have a good package of cards to talk about. Black Market's super generic. I don't know, like this can go. This can go. I think this can also go. And this deserves to be here. I don't understand. Why is this an untagged creatures? It's crazy to me. And now it's gone. Whatever. That's Griswold. That's Grist. Guillaume. Oh my God. There's so many commanders. See, that's why these videos take a while to make. It's just research takes forever. And I'm more diligent here. Like, I actually sit down and do them and don't do anything else. Like, I don't watch a YouTube video or anything. But I might go less in depth on the ones that I find super interesting. And Guillaume is already in some other deck. So let's find him. Where art thou? And hashtag yo. Yo. Yes. All right. Remove one, by the way. So 4 mana trample. At the beginning of your end step, create a number of food tokens equal to the number of non-token creatures you had entered the battlefield under your control this turn. Sacrifice a food for 1 mana. Target creature gains indestructible until end of turn. Tap it. This is super good to protect your creature-based strategies. Maybe that's like the the brain rot also of talking nonstop for 2 hours as an introvert. I'm thinking Beledros and get me up there. Beledros and Sabertooth Femur. You have infinite ETBs. There's different ways to generate infinite ETBs. That's the first one that comes to mind. And then there is a bunch of overlap. Non-token creatures you had entered the battlefield under your control this turn. Okay. The way I think about this is, do we have a bunch of stuff that bounces itself? That's tricky. Stuff like Feasting Troll King is something that you can repeatedly return to the battlefield. Of course, not everything needs to go infinite. That's also kind of an issue I have when deck building. I always try to go for infinites because I goldfish a lot, and there the value of infinites is quite apparent, whereas like value is less tangible. Interesting. A bit of a toughie again. The Witch's Oven package definitely ends up in this deck. Because you can recur the Cauldron's Familiar. It's just like an easy slot into the deck. We're also going to mention Jahira again. It ends up in every food deck, ever. And so will Knights of Sweet Revenge. And then it sacrifices a food specifically. I'm definitely gonna like call back to this section of the video for viewers to like get an idea. Gingerbread Cabin at instant speed to give a creature indestructible. Definitely also something that needs mention. What I think is really unique about this is getting to make infinite food tokens. I'm thinking. Let's see what EDI trick does. Because I have a few cards in mind that I'm sure will show up here, but I forgot the name. Academy Manufacturer, always, of course. But something that makes it unique. Oh yeah, like Nightblade, also good in every token deck. Okay, people are not playing that style of cards. Oh, wow. I'm gonna mention this. New card, Mazirek. Honestly, Mazirek Might deserve its own mention. Very cool. Whenever a player sacrifices another permanent, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. I was thinking of a 4-mana artifact creature that bounces another permanent to your hand. And then making it super cheap and creating infinite food tokens. But that's also a bit boring. It's something that can slot into a lot of decks. So maybe let's not talk about it. Then let's leave it at that. I might have to think about whether I include this in the video because it might not be unique enough. Although I really like the notion of sacrificing a food to like do politics in the way of like I can protect your creature, but B also to tap down like big threats, a bit of in a Coma way, right? Coma Chameleon, the big blue-green legendary that creates a 3/3 every turn, every upkeep, by the way. And you can sacrifice one of those 3/3s to either give Coma indestructible or to tap down something. And I think of this in a similar way. So actually, let's maybe add Coma. I also want the not legal cards. Yo, I thought this was the Pokemon Rayquaza. Yes, but exactly this Coma is what I'm talking about. Let's go back. Let's add it. And let's get rid of this artwork. What is this? Is this like Final Fantasy? Oh, it's Avatar. Okay. I don't remember this card. Let's choose a normal one. Or let's choose the gangsta one. I really love the alt treatment in Call Time. Yep, I kind of think of these in a similar way. Of course, Coma is a bit more of a game ender, but this can also give itself indestructible. Yeah, it's like a tame Coma. Let's do one last one. I'll be at Hapatra. That's like a bit less than half. But I'll be better prepared. Probably, honestly, tomorrow. This was really fun. I also hope it's useful for myself and my video making process. If it proves to be useful and I can skip the stupid Excel list, that's all the better. Let's do Hapatra. Hapatra also won that just got a huge upgrade. Because we got the Blight Precon in Loam and Eclipse. Hapatra is a 2-mana 2/2 human cleric. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. And whenever you put one or more -1/-1 counters on a creature, you get to create a 1/1 snake creature token with Death Touch. This goes infinite in so many ways. Unfortunately, what I always want to do is like copy this and add it here. Yeah, it just copies the card name. -1 counter. I think it ignores the minus. No, it doesn't. It actually works. That's very nice. Okay. It's like aberrant return. It's crazy. Just a crazy card. Huge upgrade that we just got. But of course, there's even better stuff. Whenever a creature is put into a graveyard from play, if it had a -1/-1 counter on it, put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. This mows down 1/1s. Like crazy. Perfect inclusion. This is a bit of a role player. When it enters, put 3 -1/-1 counters on target creature you control, and then remove a -1/-1 counter from Channeler and tap it to add a mana of any color to your mana pool. It's interesting. It might be a good role player, but remember it only creates 1/1 snake creature token from Hapatra. And it's just a 2-mana dork. Might be good enough though. I'm a bit hesitant when my commander's 2 mana to also play 2 mana ramp. But in reality, it might end up in a way where I play ramp on turn 2 always, and then turn 3, I have 4 mana to play my commander and another 2-drop. So it could actually be a very clean curve. Very funny, Contagion, the black force of will that puts -2/-1 counters on 1 or 2 creatures. Does not trigger Hapatra because she specifically cares about -1/-1 counters. Which is extremely funny. This looks like it can go infinite. Put a -1/-1 counter on this, untap it. If you find a way to also simultaneously give it a +1/+1 counter, GG, you have infinite tokens. At the beginning of your upkeep, destroy target creature with a -1/-1 counter. Unfortunately, this synergy package is super expensive. I looked into it once. I hope the price of the precon brings it down. Devoted Druid, another classic to go infinite. There's like put 1 less -1/-1 counters on something. But then Hapatra doesn't actually work. So you need to put a +1/+1 counter on it. But I want to showcase new cards mostly. Yeah, like Dreadtiller. Perfect. I recommend if you're interested in this type of strategy, just pick up the precon. There's so many good cards in it. There's also super expensive cards in it. I'm not sure if Crumbling Ash is in it. I think it would be weird to not include it since it's Morning Tide. Or Eventide, I think. Could be interesting. But -1/-1 counters come in steps. Move 2 counters from this creature. Just a blight mechanic in general is, of course, very good. See if we find any striking examples. No, we're already at N. It's not that bad. No, I mean, Midnight Banshee, even a card like this, 6 mana, it's not that great. Beginning of upkeep, it needs to survive. But, yeah, just $3. Melira doesn't work because creatures can't have -1/-1 counters. That means you can't go infinite with it. With your cards, I believe. Here it's just a bit of a Hapatra deck doubler. Whenever you put 1 or more -1/-1 counters on a creature, create that many 1/1 black insect creature tokens. Necroskid, I just got a reprint. Whenever a creature an opponent controls with a -1/-1 counter on it dies, you get that card. Insane, of course. There's so many good things. Persist, insane roleplayer already. Off-nabbed goat. Draw a card. Gain control of this creature and put a -1/-1 counter on it. Only your opponents may activate this ability and only as a sorcery. So this means you can't stack the ability. Oh, the nabbed off goat is so good here. Already, that's like enough to talk about. Kind of. Is there other good stuff? Let's go back real quick, take a step back and look at Hapatra again. Because we're talking about a bunch of new Lorwyn Eclipse stuff. We have potential infinites with Devoted Druid and Cinder, Haze, Wretch that I kind of would like to find an enabler for. I'm sure EDH will provide this. Necroskitter, we can mention that it got a reprint. Nabbed of Goat is just a really fun card, right? It's a bit of a politics card. We can mention Nest of Scarabs as a bit of a doubler for your commander. It's very nice if you have a second card in the 99 that does what your commander does. And it's especially nice if it has a different type. Enchantments are just more difficult to hate on than creatures. Aberrant Return, I'll also talk about these 3 cards in the same breath as new cards from the new precon, which, again, pick it up if you're interested. Persist, worth mentioning because it's a reanimate for 2 mana that also comes with a 1/1 snake creature token and potentially other upsides later on. Midnight Banshee, honestly, the card is pretty garbage. I don't think I want to mention. Channel and Initiate, not exciting enough for a video. I think this is really nice. Again, you can mow down 1/1s whenever a creature is put into a graveyard from play. If it had a -1/-1 counter on it, put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. Very nice. And then Crumbling Ashes. It's also very good. This whole package is just so solid, and it just got even better. What do we look at now? I think I'm gonna take a quick peek at the EDH Hapatra. Because I know Hapatra. I know there's good ways to go infinite with Hapatra. I don't know how to find them. Proliferate, we can talk about, but that's honestly just a quick mention. Yes, Massacre Girl, I thought about also. Massacre Girl, I should have mentioned that. It's the known killer, right? Yeah. Bit more expensive, but not prohibitively so. Some good role players like Spitting Dilophosaurus, but personally, I don't like to talk about Universe Beyond. Ooh, a bridge to the snakes from Kamigawa. Very interesting. I might need to take a look at that. But not for the video. Oh yeah. Maha, it's Feathers Knight. I could just open up one of my -1/-1 counter decks, honestly. The card is just so busted. It's crazy. Toski, pretty good. With interesting. It might be harder to compensate the -1/-1 counters to also benefit from Hapatra. I know there's ways where you can go like have less -1/-1 counters placed on your creatures, but I believe that is a white-green creature. Nonetheless, that is good enough. Yeah. I think we have enough to talk about in this section. Wait, where's the tab? Here. All right. I am kind of tempted to end the stream here because my voice is starting to go a little fry. Starts to hurt a little. But also, this was so fun that I think I'm gonna do it tomorrow again. Probably around the same time, maybe a bit earlier. I know a lot of my viewers on the YouTube videos are from a time zone that is starting to go to bed now. I'll try and do this tomorrow again. This was super fun. I'll see how much it helps me with the actual creation of the video, because I mean, that's what I'm doing this for mostly. And maybe if I feel like it, will play some Bazaar at the end. Maybe not. We'll see. Anyways, this was fun. I hope you enjoyed. and hopefully see you tomorrow. Bye.